Boom! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakyan. Very excited to be talking about productizing new technology all the way from 1995 until today. We have Dan Saffer joining us. Hello.
Hello. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming on.
This should be fun. Yeah, no, this is going to be great.
I'm very, very excited. I'm very grateful for finding you on the interwebs and now being able to talk about this topic that you've been so deeply engaged with. It's crazy. What is it now? 15 years? 20?
Almost 25 years?
25 years?
Doing this? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 25 years of productizing new tech. Yeah. So this started for you, and like I wanna give a quick background on Dan. Mm-hmm. Dan's background, did a BA at UCLA, then did a master's in interaction design at Carnegie Mellon University. He's been in the industry since 1995, doing everything from doing like Tap is the new click with gestural interfaces, all the way to IoT and wearables, mobile pre-iPhone stuff, and all the way up to Mayfield Robotics with Curry, the social robot, and now most recently on Twitter's consumer product team. So that's a little bit of background, and we're going to be diving into all these different categories as we go. Let's talk broadly first about the human experiment. We like talking about this kind of like, big history take on, we find ourselves as stewards of Earth. What is your current synthesis on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough time to be talking about that. It feels like just a lot of things are unraveling, and we're being handed a world that is slowly falling apart in a number of different ways, socially, economically, climate, environmentally, all these things. And so it is a hard time, I think, to be a human. But I just read this amazing book called The Ends of the Earth, and it talks about the 5 times that basically Earth has destroyed itself. And so the Earth will be fine. It's just us that I'm worried about. You know, the Earth is going to be, will just regenerate itself. But man, yeah, some days I worry that that this is the end of times for us. But then again, you think about history in general, and lots of people have thought that about their time. So maybe I'm just a pessimist.
What would you say is the most important code to rewrite?
The most important code that seems to be lacking right now is kind of the empathy code. Empathy for each other, empathy for the situations that we're finding ourselves in. There seems to be like a real breakdown there in like being able to very easily dehumanize the other. And I think that's just a poison. And so, but I think it's even tricking our own brains to think, it's other people that are going to suffer from this, climate change and stuff like that. So I think it's just a short-sightedness of human nature. Yeah, we're not very good at the like long-term thinking or thinking outside of tribes. The small clusters that our brains are wired for.
Yeah, so it's 2 things. It's kind of like taking the mind into this longer term, deep time maybe perspective, and then also taking our what we have programmed with us to think about nuclear family being our only kin and extending that out, the empathy out to the global village.
Yeah, I mean, going, the whole Dunbar number, we're wired to think about, 150 people, and that's our clan, and that's our, and so it's harder for us to think citywide or countrywide or globally. And now all of our problems, many of our problems are global. They're not just contained, to a small group anymore. They're super complex. Things like climate change can't be done you can start at a local level for sure, but the solutions have got to be global, and that's where we're tripping up. We're just not wired for that. So we have to come up with new ways of doing it. And maybe this is where the AI can help us solve these big long-term problems that maybe they're better suited for than we are.
Well, they're definitely better suited for running millions of permutations in very short periods of time.
For sure.
Solutions.
Right. Yeah, it's just, are those solutions going to be palatable to us? The way to get rid of climate change is to get rid of all the humans. Right. That's it's those kinds of situations that we have to now be careful for.
Yeah. So, all right, let's dive into, productizing new tech. This has been 25 years, like you said, which is crazy. That's as old as, around I am and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of the people I work with, don't remember a time when there was no web, there was no commercial internet. And so that's how kind of I cut my teeth. I was working at a book publisher and they were like, have you ever heard of this thing called the web? And I was like, well, yes, I have a browser. And they're like, okay, you're now running our website. And so that was really, interesting. And, I had lived in California and moved to New York, and I was like the only person who ever moved from California to New York and got a tech job. It was like one of those crazy things that at that time, but that actually was kind of the trajectory of my whole career, has been like riding this wave of new technologies that I've constantly found myself like, especially when I was working in consulting for a long time, was like people would come to us and be like, well, we've got this, what can you do with this? And whether that was, an Internet of Things idea or a gestural interface or a robot, it was like, okay, well, what can we do with this? What makes the most sense? Where's the limits of that technology? How can we make that technology understandable to human beings and make it something that people like want and desire, and not just be like, oh, I've got this thing now strapped to me, or oh my God, I've got this thing in my house that's, listening to me and watching me all the time and feels like, an alien's been dropped there. So how do you turn like this new technology into products that people love? And so that's been my career, and it's been great. It's been a fascinating run that I hope continues.
Yeah, you taking us back to the days of someone being like, do you know what the World Wide Web is?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Back to those days, and for me, we're kind of part of like the always on. We were Windows 95.
Yeah, exactly.
Was kind of like our generation of getting online. Windows 98, right? That was kind of our generation. And then now the kids that are coming into have had their whole lives on the iPhone. They've had their entire lives with the newest tech, and that's this next. The next kids born today will likely have the augmented reality tech, the spatial computing tech.
For sure.
As they're, so it's kind of nuts that this is moving at like the edge is getting to the children, like, and they're spending their whole lives with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, my daughter is 18, and she has spent her entire life with her especially her kind of teenage years with a phone, connected to social networks. It's her existence has been very different from mine in that we would say things like, oh, don't you want to be with your friends, and she'd hold up her phone and say, I'm with them right now. So that's kind of a fascinating thing, that you're always connected, you're always online, you're always part of a collective in a way, and that's a really fascinating thing, and it's only going to grow from now when as kind of privacy decreases and those kinds of things, we get much more wired into each other, and her generation is like already there. I remember it was so weird to me when in Venmo you could see like who was paying who, and I was like, wow, that's I feel like we've crossed some new barrier of privacy, where where
you can see who's paying who, like for rent,
and for all kinds of stuff, and it was like, wow, this is a new level
That's
that we're
a great
going to,
example,
yeah.
though, of complete transparency and nobody caring. Like, when was the last
Right.
time you actually went into your public Venmo feed and went and started, like, observing who's paying who how much money? You really don't care.
No.
So that's the thing
Right,
about this
exactly.
radical transparency is actually perfectly cool.
Right. I mean, there certainly are things that I could see people using that technology for not, if the default is public, and I believe it is for that. Yeah, I could see someone making a mistake and pay, and being like, well, I didn't want you to know how much I was paying for rent, or
Malevolent actors.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
So, and that's, I think.
Dan, let's dive.
Oh,
let's
sure,
dive, because
sure.
I know
Yeah, let's
that,
keep going.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because you had 4 books that you had authored.
Yeah.
And on the 4 books, these kind of have been following this productizing new tech edge that we've been talking about. I want you to take us to, you started taking us to, your work leading up to basically this cool phrase about tap is the new click. Gestural interfaces.
Yeah.
And I heard it in one of your talks you were giving, and it was really, really interesting that what was this 2000 and what time was this?
This is like 2008. It was like right around the time that the iPhone was coming out, right around the time pre-iPad, but I had been working with Nokia and seeing, it was like, wow, these new devices are definitely all going to be touchscreen. I was doing a lot of kiosk kind of work, and it was like, wow, this is this generation's chance to create a whole new interaction design language, a whole new way of interacting with computers, in the same way that the previous generation had done with the mouse and the GUI at like Park and all, and Apple kind of at that,
yes.
Back in like the 70s and early 80s. But now I'm like, 20 years later, 90s, early 2000s, it's like, this is our chance to start coming up with this whole new language to like work with these new devices. And we did. And so that was, I think, that was kind of my generation's biggest contribution, I think, to the world of to kind of the history of interaction design, was all of this work around mobile and touchscreens.
Yeah.
And then, the next generation, like you were saying, is probably going to be AR and VR and, and much more on the side of what I was kind of calling free-form gestures, like
free-form.
Gestures in space,
exactly.
versus gestures on a screen. Yeah, I mean, the gestures in space problem is a really hard one.
Yeah.
And I know that people are, there are people out there working on it right now, and it's, it is one of those things that's, it's nascent, and
I love that word.
Yeah.
Free-form gestures.
Free-form gestures. Yeah, when I was writing the gestural interface book, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what are the two kinds, because I ended up talking about 2 different kinds of gestural interfaces. One is the one where you're touching a screen, and the other is, where you're just moving in space, or just being present triggers something, or hey, I make a swipe gesture in the air and this happens. Both of which, have plenty of, you swipe your hand under a tissue dispenser, in the bathroom right now, and it gives you a paper towel. So there are these things that are like living in the world. They're just they're primitive, and they're not as much digitized as what we'll see in 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah, this freeform gestures are also very interesting for just design and interacting with the computing, with the internet in general. Just, it's a very exciting thing that I think is going to be all over the world with the 4 billion devices that are around now. I think we're going to go into the 4 billion people that will have the spatial computing freeform gestures, and they'll be able to design and create much more effectively and learn more effectively when you can see in 3D what the kidneys do in the human body, or what a certain electrical engineering component does in a robot, right? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, the trick is how to, I mean, we're talking about, you know, the human factor, and, you know, our bodies aren't made to do this. You know, the gestural stuff is like really tiring. I mean, when Tom Cruise was doing it for Minority Report, he was getting tired a lot. That's Tom Cruise, you know, he's in good shape, you know, much less, you know, me trying to do gestures in space and stuff for a day. It's tough, but I think there's going to be times where it's going to make perfect sense, and we'll be like, oh wow, that's so obvious. Why, you know?
Yeah.
Why didn't we do that? You know.
That's interesting about the tiredness, and then I think the next one after that is potentially that direct neural connection, that brain-computer
interface
for sure. After that,
Mm-hmm.
which is reading out the thoughts into the internet immediately to think that you want to make that blue, and then it becomes blue, and that you want to make it a square, it becomes square. You want to go to this certain Wikipedia article, it goes there.
Right.
Yeah.
We're a ways from that, I think, but
that one's very exciting.
But it's really cool, you know.
We'll
be in the Matrix. I'll still be alive, I hope, when that happens. But yeah,
we'll be in the Matrix when that happens.
It's
we already are, Dad.
Well, that's true. We can debate about whether we're all in the simulation right now or not.
Yes.
Couple
sure. more quick stuff. Okay. You were telling us about this transition. It was there were a lot of people that were using, you know, the meat stick bandwidth fingers. So,
yeah.
The meat sticks is we still use them. It's like it's still slow sometimes and stuff. But then you know, the touch screens, you were seeing that was this transition, and then you were teaching me a bit about, you know, the emotional connection being something that's so important, because if you have such a deep emotional connection to let's say the software that you're using, that you will potentially forgive some of the error micro interactions that you have with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's Don Norman has a whole thing, like, you know, things that are emotional kind of work better because you love them, and it's not that they necessarily work better, but it's exactly that you'll forgive them their mistakes, or you overlook it, or some of it is just so delightful to use that you're like, wow, this is something that's part of my life. It's part of my identity, even that you kind of take that in, and you're like, wow, you know, my iPhone shows off who I am. You know, this is part of me. It's part of my identity, and because, you know, you love it, and it's, you know, well made and all those kinds of things. So then when I was trying to figure out what were the things that made someone have this emotional attachment, that's when I started thinking about, you know, it's all these little small things. And that's how I wrote the Micro Interactions book, starting to think about, like, what, you know, the things that you love about a product aren't necessarily the big features, because, you know, all phones can make a phone call, all phones can send text messages, but it's how they do it. It's those little moments that make you love a product, that make you, like, really have an emotional attachment to it. And that's why I kind of wrote that book, because I looked at, like, what's the smallest thing? Like the ringer on your phone. Like, nobody thinks about that. Like, but Apple did think about that, and, you know, and had a really beautiful ringer on it, whereas you look at, like, the old Nokia phones, to turn the ringer off you had to go through, like, 4 different menus.
Menus.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, you know, hey, this is something that you do all the time. Like, maybe bring that to the surface. and put it up, right? Exactly, and make a really pleasing little click sound when you do it.
Let me see if I can tackle this in an interesting light. Maybe a lot of what, like, an interaction designer would maybe think of is, how is the user going to engage with this product or service? And they maybe apply, like, the 80-20 rule, and they say that, you know, which 20% of the features of the product or service are they going to want to use 80% of the time, and then they're going to want to, like you said, bring those up, so it's not 4 clicks away in a hidden menu step, but it's a pull down and then you click it, like the flashlight on a phone, something like that.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's that one of the things that an interaction designer does is think about, like, who's using it, when, how often. And then trying to figure out, like, what do I bring forward? What do I push back? Who's using this the most? Are there parts of the task that would be pleasing to highlight or difficult to do that otherwise we should put some functionality in. Like there's this great toaster, the Breville toaster, and I have one at home, and if the toast pops up and you need a little bit more toasting, there's a button that says a little bit more, and you press that, the toast goes down and pops up a little bit more. And that's genius. It's a great piece of interaction design. It's like somebody looked at the process of making toast and saw people like, you know, when it popped up, now I need to push it down, but I need to stand here
and wait.
so that it doesn't burn. But this was like, oh, let's take that little pain point and make it into something really pleasing. Boom, here it is. So so great designers do that all the time.
See, I love that. So then that's another thing that we can hopefully embed into children when they're birthed into the world, is look around the world and see the different services, products that we've made, and think about how we interact with them. Think about how we can make them better, more humane, potentially more, bring the things that we use so much forward.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of one of the first like mind-blowing things when you first start learning design, is like, oh, look around. You know, everything in this room was designed by someone, intentionally or unintentionally. Like, except for, you know, the plants were, you know, the plants were not designed unless you
by Mother Earth, by evolution,
except by Earth and natural selection. But I mean, all, you know, everything here has been designed, and you start to think, well, what were the these are all just a set of choices that have been solidified into a product. And why would, you know, and start thinking like, well, why would they make this choice? Why is this long and not tall? Why are there three of these, not four? So all those decisions, it's like, okay, somebody made them. And whether they make them intentionally or unintentionally, I mean, it could have been, you know, an engineer that just made them because, the sound quality is better, or it could have been a product manager who's like, oh, we're going to sell this at this price point, so we can only put 2 of these in there. So it's just a question of who makes the decisions and whether they're made intentionally or not.
And then another good one to piggyback on that is that then what's your role in designing our world?
So, I mean, I think the designer's role is
as like a broad statement for people thinking, like, when you come, you were saying everything in here has been designed by someone, right?
Right, exactly.
And so then the idea is then, you know, what is your role in designing our world, like for everyone?
For everyone, I mean, some of it is, I mean, what you choose to support, what you choose to buy, like how, you know, what that means, like what it means in your life, like. So, you know, are you going to buy the $3 one that's going to be garbage in 2 days, or are you going to buy the $5 one that's eco-friendly? You know, there's a lot of trade-offs like that.
Should the $3 one even exist? Is another good question. You know,
I mean, this has been a huge
consumerism has taken its toll on the planet versus thinking in the long term. I
mean, it is a hard question, though. I mean, because we get back to things like income inequality. So these $3 socks are terrible. They were made in a sweatshop in, you know, Thailand or something like that, and you know, they're going to fall apart. But someone really needs those socks at that price point.
But there's so many better ways to make socks at cheaper price points, using things like biotechnology.
Right, and then so then the question is, is it worth, or how do we make it worth someone's time to do that? How do we make it worth How do we make it worth Walmart's time or Target's time to find those suppliers and do those and support them? All those kinds of things.
Teach us about your work. You did Mayfield Robotics for a year. You built Curry, this beautiful social robot, and we have a nice image to bring up as well.
Somewhere.
Yes, it's coming. So teach us about what this is like. Social robots, what is it? 1 in every 10 U.S. households will have a social robot by 2020.
That was the prediction. I think that they were a little... as witnessed by the fact that the robotics industry seems to be going through some hard times right now. I think they were a little optimistic about those predictions. It's a very hard time to have social robots because honestly, what they're competing against in your life are things like pets, are things like small children. I'm not kidding. They are great in very specific situations. Things like
Ronnie, will you bring up a higher res file of one? If you just look up KURI.
That's a tall order.
Right.
We're not in budget for that.
That's right.
We're not in budget for that.
We're doing the best we can.
With what we got.
Sure.
Our viewers at home have a higher res.
Oh, they do. Okay, great. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Curry was an amazing. We tried to make Curry to be basically like a Pixar character come to life. And we had a Pixar animator that helped us create kind of the looks, the expressions, the feelings when the robot would encounter things or have an error or see someone it likes, or what happens when someone touches its head, or those kinds of things. And I mean, Curry for me was kind of a culmination of a lot of things, because he not only had kind of gestural interface things where you could touch him but you could talk to him, so that it had voice UI. I mean, and they're sophisticated objects moving. Not when you're doing like Internet of Things type objects, they're usually fixed in place, but robots move. That's their whole point. That's like one of the definitions of a robot, is that they move in 3D space. So
how big is it? You could have brought one with you. I'm just saying, it would have been nice to have a little.
It was 2 years ago he was working.
It was it was 2 years. They're collector's items now. They are roughly
to the waistline.
Yeah, they're about 2 feet tall, something like that.
Okay. Cool. And you said you can touch and interact with
them you can touch the head, and it looks at you. You can say, "Hey, Curry," and it looks for your face.
And then it has the capability to connect to the internet. So then you're asking it questions,
right?
And then it's engaging with you, maybe giving you answers from the internet, that type of stuff.
Yes. So Curry was an interesting thing, because we had made the decision very early on in its product life cycle that it was not going to speak human, it was going to speak robot. We wanted it to be more R2D2, not C3PO. And so you couldn't ask it things like, hey, what time is it? Or the stuff like you would ask Alexa or Google, because Google Home, because we knew that, hey, this is also going to compete with them. But you could say, hey, deliver a message, or you could ask very simple kind of questions, and it would respond back to you. It could whistle, it could hum, it could make little, beeps and boops kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but it was an interesting design challenge that we kind of put ourselves into, in that we really wanted the character of the robot to be very robot-y,
yes,
and not Alexa-like.
And it's also nuts that you're mentioning that it's replacing the dog, cat, little child, because you're getting a little social robot right here on the table that is engaging with you, knowing your mood, sensing your biometrics, connecting to all of your other connected devices in your home, and just helping you learn, helping you stay in a potentially like a happy state. There's so much with social robots that is still left to unpack. I want to get to a couple. Oh, nice, Ron.
Yep, there's a couple of them. Oh yeah, there they go.
I love it. Don't play the clip for too long, because we can get they'll mark us. Yeah, just put it on shot 2 so they can see it. Yeah, there you go. Right. Get marked. So all right. So Mike Beebe. Cool. He would be fun. Let's try and get Mike on the show. We'll follow up. We'll follow up on that. Let's see if we can get that to happen.
We're gonna get in trouble. I mean, I don't want to.
Wait, no, we did it short enough. Short enough.
Stuff,
You can do it short enough. That was a great video. Short enough. Short enough. It works. You can't do it for too long. All right. So yeah, look at how much. I mean, a ton of work goes into these processes in order to make this happen.
You know, and I was just, you know, one person out of you know, the 50 that were like making this robot happen. It was a huge group effort to do it, and yeah, just a tremendous amount of work all around. Heartbreak that.
It's crazy with the kid, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, yeah, that was the thing, was that it was amazing for people with kids. It was amazing for, I mean, while I was kind of joking about it, like replacing kids and pets, it was great when you had kids and pets because it could keep an eye on them, especially like, you know, teens and stuff, that preteens that were kind of in the house, you know, that might be there before mom and dad get home. Things like that were things that we were looking.
That's interesting. Use case.
Yeah.
Okay, teach us about what's happening right now. The last 2 years, you've been doing work as a senior product
senior staff product designer yeah, at Twitter.
And this is the consumer product team.
Yeah, the consumer product team. So I work on what is what you know think of as Twitter, the stuff that consumers see. Yeah, so I was first on a team that we called the Possible Futures team, and one of our jobs was to look at what Twitter could be in a couple years. So we looked, we used a lot of what we called, which known in the industry as kind of design fiction. We used like telling like little Black Mirror but positive style stories in order to think about, we call them blue mirror because the Twitter bird is blue. So we were thinking about them as little stories that we could tell about what the future of Twitter could be like in a couple of years. And then from those stories we began to extract actual product ideas and start to put them kind of in the product pipeline to suggest them to our product teams and stuff like that as part of, you know, going forward. Like, hey, like if we want this to be the future in a couple of years, here's some stuff that we need to start thinking about now.
And that's so interesting. Again, you know, a lot of your work has been at this cutting edge, and even going past it, like you also indicated, like you love making science fiction reality. So when you do things like these blue mirror, you're kind of like simulating out potential futures, and then you're seeing which one of those do we want, and then you're turning that into product ideas that then get developed into the cycle and then released in a couple years. And that's kind of like the idea.
Right, exactly. So yeah, so myself, Sean Thompson, and Lisa Ding, my co-conspirators on this team. Yeah, we would kind of think about, like these like future visions that, and we knew like some of these were like, wow, this is, we would actually, if it was able to be done right now, we're like, wow, we're not thinking far enough out. Like if it was something that could be done like that year, we're not thinking hard enough. We need that we should just, you know, we should just put that idea aside because it's too easy. Like, so we were actually thinking of stuff that would be a technical challenge for technology that either hasn't been made yet or just hasn't been implemented like that yet. So it was, really interesting.
And then now, you know, it's so funny because the public so wants to know what happens in like the R&D departments of like Google and Twitter, Facebook, and like all these major Apple, like Microsoft, Amazon. Like we want to know like what's coming, but like at the same time, the companies have to like protect their like their ideations, kind of like their IP, right? And so
exactly, and even ideas that we may not go forward with, it's always like, well, this might be an interesting idea for us to acquire someone who's working in this area, those kinds of things. But yeah, it's definitely with the way that Twitter is, we certainly don't want to give people if we were like, oh, we're thinking about these, people might be like, oh, when does that come? You know, we don't want to raise expectations for things that may that we just don't either have the time or the resources, or just, not part of our roadmap where we're headed. I mean, and which, like every major company that shifts every year.
Now, teach us about, like, there's so many of these possible futures that you've been 25 years now, from 95 till now. Now give us like the next, maybe like your 5 or 10 year. What are you envisioning we're bringing down? We talked about that a bit with the free form gesticulation gestures. We talked a bit about that with the brain computer interface stuff. But like, where do you see us potentially engaging with the internet and with each other in the next in these next couple of years?
So I think with the rise of machine learning and AI, which is stuff I'm working with now, like, things are going to get a lot smarter, a lot faster. I see a lot of, being able the way companies do now, where they're buying processing power, they're just going to buy AI power kind of off the shelf. I think that'll be a really interesting thing where you'll be able to, almost like at an app store, you'll be like, well, I need this, I need this, I need this level, this kind of intelligence and this kind of algorithm to go there, put this all together for me, and that's what's going to power my app.
Like an AI shop.
Basically store. Like an AI algorithm shop, where you can buy it all from,
Ben Goertzel's kind of working on that, the decentralized artificial general intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, it's an idea that's definitely coming. That I know, people that are like thinking about it and working on it. And I'm sure, your Amazons, your Googles, people that already control the cloud are really thinking about it. So there's that. On the kind of robotics front, the manipulation of objects is going to get much better in the next 10 years. So you will be able to have robotics that have that can do a lot more, that can be social, but can also be much more functional. That was our biggest complaint. Oh, can the robot bring me a beer? And it's like, well, bringing a beer is a really hard cognitive task.
Dexterity.
Think about, like, if I say, like, oh, fetch, can you get me a cup of coffee? Like, A, you have to know what coffee is. B, you have to know where it would be. C, you have to, like, go to the thing and get it. And then you have to have the dexterity to pick it up and do
the actions.
There's a famous saying when robots can do what 7-year-olds can, where they have the same amount of intelligence and the same amount of dexterity and strength. Like, that's the big game changer in robotics, and that's not that far. That's not that far away. I don't think. I think it's
maybe 5-10 years.
I think that's a 5-10 year.
It's in 10 years, if the robot, if you're asking, please assist me with this task or that task in the house, that's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
I mean, so I think those two things. I think a lot of much more contextual computing, I think, is going to be big. Like, just having a lot more awareness of where you are, what you're doing, how you're feeling, and adjusting based on that. I think that's
huge.
That's a huge upcoming thing. It's a lot of processing power. It's a lot of turning over personal data, those kinds of things.
When I'm feeling stressed, it'd be very exciting to maybe have the lights dim for meditation music to come on, the scent of lavender to come in, and just to relax. Like, that stuff is fascinating to me.
Even super basic stuff. Hey, I'm in bed. Turn off put a do not disturb on my
device,
on my Apple Watch. Just while I'm here. Yes. I mean, you have to be careful about not overstepping your bounds, because it'll be weird if everything is super tailored. But but there are definitely things where I'm like, hey, maybe you know, maybe turn off notifications. I'm super stressed. Maybe, you know, dial down my notifications.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't need to know every single thing happening. You know,
Totally.
those kinds of things I think are
Yeah.
really fascinating.
It's
it's
25
almost
past.
time. Okay.
Can you
Too
stay
quick-
longer than 6:30? Because I could go for another hour with you. And I'm just
you're
saying,
really
I
exciting.
wasn't really involved.
The
in this
dog.
Oh,
You got to
good.
get the dog.
So, gotta get
the dog. Let's
Yeah.
do the 2 quick questions that
Sure,
we ask on the
sure.
show on the way out.
Okay.
You were hinting at this earlier, which made us really excited, but this is simulation, so we must ask you, are we in a simulation?
I think that there is a chance we could be. I don't really have any. I don't really have any good reasoning for that, but I, you know, there are definitely things where you sometimes feel like, wow, we've moved into a different timeline, or something has shifted. You know, there's these kind of black swan events that feel like there's an invisible hand moving stuff, which, you know, may just be my human brain trying to make sense of an unpredictable, unplanned, chaotic world, or it could be, hey, we're in a simulation. So I don't know. I think the jury's out. I think, you know, I think there's been some interesting speculation about it. So I'm generally agnostic in terms of, you know, supernatural beings and simulations or godlike beings, you know, playing dice with us. So
For being around, you know, 25 years and seeing what has really happened with our almost now, it's getting to indistinguishable connection to the technological digital realm. Now it's just becoming more and more like a possible that we're awakening to that possibility more and more because of just the degree of tech.
Yeah, I mean, you know, once you realize how easy it is for your senses to be manipulated in all kinds of ways, it's not unfathomable that we are in some kind of simulation.
Already happening algorithmically with the technologies we use.
Yeah,
and hopefully
for sure.
we rewrite the social code to make the algorithmic manipulation be more towards altruism and kin, global village as kin. You know, that would be great.
For sure. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
if we can somehow, you know, tilt all of our technology towards a more humane future for everyone, where everyone's treated with dignity, everyone's treated with respect, figure out ways to do that.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yes, yes. Now, last question is, what do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
Ooh, geez. I would think it would be something like a forest. That's what springs to mind. It's a complex ecosystem, lots of things living in it, lots of things at different sizes and shapes, and things that are created and go away instantly like little flies, and things that last hundreds of years like trees, and how they're all interconnected, I think is just an amazing, beautiful set of things. I think that is, you know, that's hard to replicate, and just an amazing creation that you know, when I'm walking in the forest or even just looking at trees, you know, in the park across the street from me, you know, which is its own little kind of mini forest. It's like, wow, this is amazing. This is something that I couldn't have come up, you know, it would be hard for a human being to have come up with this. But it's amazing that we get to share the planet with these things.
Yes, yes.
So that's my beautiful thing off the top of my head.
Love it, Dan. This has been a fun episode.
Great. I'm glad.
Super enlightening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
For coming
Thanks
on
for
the
having
show.
me. Thanks for having me.
Teaching us Yeah, this is very enlightening. Lots of new ways of thinking around productizing new tech and what it's been like, where it is now, where it's going. It's very exciting stuff. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. We would love for you to check out the links in the bio below. That's odannyboy.com and also odannyboy on Twitter. Check that out. And huge shout out to Ron Vargas. Thank you for producing and directing. We love you very much. And guys, go have more conversations. Talk to more people about what it's like, our current state with future tech, our future with future tech. How do we make it more humane, etc. And support artists and entrepreneurs that you believe in. You know, all of our links are below. Go and check those out. Support us. You believe in us. We would love to continue growing and impacting more people around the world. And go and build the future, everyone. Manifest your dreams into the world. We love you very much. Thank you, and we will see you soon. Peace.